Hey guys, as we always say, we are back, and this evening we are discussing one of those really, really important topics, divorce and breakups. And we just want to know, is it necessary? And if you're going through it, do you have the tools to deal with that? Or is it really wrecking your life? So this evening, I've got two experts that are going to take us through and give us some insights on what we can do when we are faced with such decisions, or when we find ourselves in such situations as breakups and divorces, and really not knowing what decision to make or what direction to take, especially when kids are involved. I'm with Sonia and Tracy today, and I'd like them to introduce themselves. I'll start with you, Tracy.
So I'm Tracy Zeman Jacobs. I'm a social worker specializing in intimacy and relationship coaching. I started my practice about going on 7 years now, and I'm working for Morningside Santon. Um, Most of my clients that I see are couples. The majority are married in relationships where there's very little sex at the moment, very little connection. Um, and yeah, I work on creating intimacy, which is actually connection in their relationships.
Thanks, Tracy. And Sonia?
Good evening. Yes, I'm Sonia Brosh. I'm also a relationship coach, but I also am a family law mediator, divorce mediator. So I work with the relationship from beginning to end, as I always say, which is not the, the fun part, the end part, because I really, really like to work with people to start, fix the relationship rather. But unfortunately, that's not always how it works. I always say my mess is my message because I myself went through divorce, so I do often speak from experience. I work from Norwood, and I also had my practice for, can't remember, can't remember, but it started from the fact that I wanted to help people because I often feel that people don't know when to actually seek help, and often I find they come to me when it has gotten to a stage where it is sometimes irreparable, that their relationship has gotten to that level where they don't actually, you can't actually fix it anymore, that you now have to go to the divorce stage because it's just broken down to that stage, to that level. So the relationship coaching then ends up in the divorce mediation. So I educated myself in the last couple of years in terms of the needs of what people actually want, what they want and need. So my relationship coaching is not based on the intimacy side because I often feel that when my clients come to me, is that the intimacy is left long ago and that they're actually floundering with communication and um, that there's already been cheating and all of those things. And cheating is often based on the fact that something has been missing in the relationship. So, of, relationships aren't breaking down because of one specific thing, be it intimacy. But there's numerous things that are actually breaking down relationships. So, as soon as you find there's something wrong, like you're not totally communicating with your partner, or something's not right, or you feel there's something missing or that, immediately go and seek help. Be it a therapist, a psychologist, or a relationship coach, doesn't matter. Just go and look for help because something is going to go wrong. And if you don't go and seek that help, then your relationship is going to degrade, from one day to the next. So that
Yeah,
is my advice.
yeah. You're touching on something very important about when do people really know it's time to seek help? Because I'm sure a lot of people in relationships don't really take it that seriously because they always have hope that things will get better. So when is that time when someone can say things are really getting out of hand now?
My advice is initially already,
Sonia, you have a bit faint. If you,
okay, I'll speak a bit louder. My PC is not, the sound doesn't work very well. So let me speak up a bit louder. Um, I say to people, every time I speak to people, is that when you're in a relationship, go for advice. Ask people, what do you need? You need tools in a relationship. That's why I like the coaching side. Because I often say to people, when you want to become a good soccer player, what do you need? You need a soccer coach. If you want to become a good basketball player, you need a basketball coach. So I say to people, I'm a relationship coach. I'm here to coach you through the process. And often people get into a relationship, beforehand it's the roses and the going out for dinner and the whole shoot and toot. But when they actually become serious, all of those things become secondary. But those are the things that sometimes make the relationship flourish. That extra attention, that giving all their time to the people, the person that they're in a relationship with. But when you then become comfortable, when you're ready to show your partner what you look like in pajamas and no makeup, that the roses become less frequent, the dinners become less frequent. That's when the relationship issues start kind of building up. So I say, when you start in a relationship, start going for coaching. Get the advice. What can we improve upon? Because often enough, the role models we have as parents, they didn't have the best tools, so they didn't impart the greatest tools to us as children. So, yes, they had long marriages and that, but I often think that they stuck it out because that was the way, they went in, they committed to marriage, etc. But we don't have the best tools. How do we communicate better? What can we do to keep our partner interested, especially in the intimacy side, which I think Tracy can elaborate on a bit more. But come to a coaching session. Commit to 4 to 8 sessions just to get a couple of the basic tools that you will need, because you don't have them. And I promise you, when you actually walk away, you will feel like you are equipped to actually deal with relationships. Because when people often, as I said, arrive in my practice, the relationship is degraded already. They're busy fighting like cat and dog. They're throwing names at each other. There's nastiness going on, and we can prevent that by giving the tools of how to fight properly, because it sounds strange, but yes, fighting is part of a relationship. That there needs to be discussion, there needs to be disagreement, and we can agree to disagree in a relationship. There's nothing wrong with it. But how do we do that properly? There's rules
yeah,
to this.
yes.
So
So maybe, yeah, thanks, Sonia. So maybe Tracy, you can come in there where we talk about when do we go and see a person and what tools can we use?
I usually see my clients, they land up at my door when the relationship has just reached a point where it's either make or break. So I'm sorry if my dogs are barking. I actually realized the door's not closed. So they really reach my door when it's make or break. We're either going to work on our relationship, or we're getting divorced, or we're breaking up. And they, for some couples, they can go forever without sex. But then one partner actually says, I've had enough. I cannot live in a sexless marriage, or they want a baby, and they're just not managing to get the sexual intimacy going. So that's really where we get to. And in terms with where do we start? Well, we really look at what is going on in the relationship and how has it got to this point. And I always say to them, there are no coincidences. You landed up here at my door at the exact time that is, it's meant to be. And so, yeah, I just find it a little bit of divine intervention, that they land up
Yeah.
at my door when they're meant to be here.
Yeah. So what can we say to people that are on the verge of making that decision and not knowing whether to proceed or to give it another shot? what can we say? So is there a point where we know that there's no going back, or even at that point there's still hope? And if there is hope, what are those tools? Like I know, Tracy, like with Imago, that
Mm.
you can encourage people to listen to each other.
Yeah. I think that
Okay.
for me, the biggest sign of hope is when both partners come willingly, and they both are 100% in the process. They both want to be there. Because if they are not 100% committed, it's not going to work. Um, what I find difficult is in a case where there's been an infidelity and there's still so much blame going on and there's still so much resentment, which is absolutely normal. And it's you. A lot of the time, couples find it so difficult to move out of that blame and resentment. And if you can get the couple out of that zone, then there is hope to even get through an infidelity. Um, it's a hard one, but there
Mm,
is hope.
yeah. So, but does it help to get them to speak to one another and to listen? Because sometimes it's really not about the issue itself, but about the individual. So how do we
Absolutely.
make an individual to look at themselves and see their contribution into the demise of the relationship? How can we get through to people? Because who knows, maybe divorce is not even necessary. Breakups are not even necessary, because usually it is not about what is happening or what the other person said, but it is
Mm.
actually about that individual. So, are there any ways that we can use to help people to realize that, to admit? Because I like what you said, Tracy, about the willingness, because sometimes there's no willingness to work on the relationship.
Sonia, would you like to respond?
I what I often do is that obviously when the clients come and they come as a couple, which as you say is extremely important. When I often
You're
when they
very
arrive,
faint again.
sorry, when my clients arrive and there's only one and they say I'm here for couples counseling, I always laugh and I say, nah, there needs to be two in couples counseling. But when they arrive and there's a commitment from both sides, that's when I usually have them in the first session. I have them both and I get both sides, but then I split them and I then create rapport with the one side and I create rapport with the other side. But I also, because often what happens is that you have the one side has got their challenges and the other side has their challenges, which they have brought into the relationship, which I first deal with. And then I bring them back together to then give them the tools and to bring in the understanding. Because when you, for instance, have an infidelity, for instance, to bring them together with that blame and the feeling of embarrassment and whatever you're dealing with is very difficult to deal with them in the session at that time, because there's a lot of the emotions are running high, etc. So it's very difficult to deal with them together. That is why I split them and I deal with them first as individuals. And I find in that way I actually get a better result, because dealing with them as an individual, I can deal with their emotions, I can deal with the issues they have and their challenges as they are as an individual. And sometimes what I actually find is that there's additional stuff that comes out from their past, etc. And then we deal with that as well. And then when I bring them back together, I can then deal with their relationship in a better manner, because we've dealt with underlying challenges that have been there even before they actually got together. Because when people get together in relationships, they often bring their background, their perspectives, their challenges that they had before that they never dealt with, etc., etc. And that often contributes to the breakdown of the relationship. So if I've then dealt with it in the individual sessions, it helps with then building up the relationship again. So that is how I deal with the with my relationship coaching, because it's
And you're finding that it
acknowledging,
does help
yes, it's
when
acknowledging
when
the
you get each
individual.
one to when you get each one to sort of acknowledge what
Yes,
challenges they have brought into the relationship.
yes, and it's also acknowledging the individual first, and then acknowledging them within the relationship. So it's my approach, and I've actually found it to be fairly successful. But if you've gotten at that stage where the one person has actually already decided, I'm done, I'm finished, I'm moving on, you can stand on your head and do cartwheels, you're not going to fix that relationship. And that's what Tracy, the wording you used about it's make or break, that I don't know if you found it, but I have found that there's, in relationships, there's sometimes one person who's actually made the decision, they've moved on. They've divorced, they just need that partner to do the typical, let's go to therapy, we've done it, but I want the divorce. And I do find that in my practice as well. I don't know if
Yeah,
you've had that.
yeah.
Tracy, you wanna add?
Yeah, I find that it definitely is a difficult case where the one partner has already left the relationship, um, and the other one is still kind of hanging in there, hoping that there will be some kind of resurrection, or some kind of um, hope that it's gonna move on, it's gonna improve, and I find that quite dishonest. Especially if you're making the effort to come to therapy, at least be honest and say, I'm not in it anymore, I'm out. So,
Mm.
but I generally am able to pick that up in terms of energy, and I just deal with it right there and then. And yeah, I have had a couple where I've had to be quite forthright and said, it doesn't seem as though you're in it. And yeah, there and then they made a decision to separate, and it was exactly what was needed. Also, another situation where the couple were just the woman was just not prepared to back down on the blame and the self the victimization, and she was going to make his life a misery forever, and she wasn't prepared to see any chance of viewing the situation any differently. So they stopped therapy. Yeah, it all depends on how how badly they want to look at their relationship as a new one. I love Esther Perel. She looks at infidelity as the opportunity to get remarried and
To
to
relook
say,
and restart.
restart. That was the old marriage. Let's look at the new marriage. Let's take what we've learned from the old marriage and use it in the new one. So, and there are lots of opportunities to doing things differently. Also, I love the way she says that we were naive when we got married the first time. Now we're no longer naive. What we know for certain is that nothing is for certain. Whereas in the first marriage,
Wow.
we were naive. We thought that nothing could go wrong. Now we know that anything can go wrong.
Hmm.
So, yeah.
Wow. So you just said something that is also very key, of having one of them having exited the relationship already,
Mm.
but not vocalizing it. And usually something like that would have a very serious impact, especially if they're children. So how do we deal with something like that? How would you advise somebody that has already exited? Because obviously there could be a lot of animosity between the two. But how does it impact everyone else around them?
Sonia?
It's kind of like a minefield that you have to really tiptoe around, because um, when one person has already kind of left the relationship, I often find there's a lot of fight. There's fighting about the color pink, and then they fight about the sky being blue, etc. They will fight about anything. And unfortunately, when they have kids involved, it becomes very, very multi-layered in terms of how do we deal with this. Because you have those parents that want to be the helicopter parents, and no, the kids don't know we're getting a divorce, and this is where I often get very, not uptight, but it's like the kids, your kids are not blind, they're not stupid because they know what's going on. Children are
They know
extremely,
it.
yeah,
Yeah, they know.
they might not know the word if they, 6, 7 years old. They might not know the word, but they know that
But
mom
they
and dad
know
are
that something is wrong.
exactly. They know that
And
something's wrong,
yeah,
and
and the
don't
longer that takes, the
absolutely,
more impact it has on them.
absolutely.
So
Children,
yeah. So
children
so
need.
which one is best for them to just split or for them to work on things?
It's it's about keeping the children in the loop. Don't ever keep your children in the dark because then they make up their own mind about stuff. They might even decide they're at fault for parents fighting because if the parents now decide, oh, why didn't you take the kids to school? Oh, well, I was busy sleeping. So they hear kids to school, they think, oh my goodness, we did something wrong. Children have this, children think the world is about them in a way because of, that it's how children think. So here's the parents fighting about silly stuff, and they hear children, or they hear the child hears its name, and then the child will make a decision based on that, and they think they're at fault. And off you go. Here has the child is being damaged in the
But
process, and we have bigger problems. If you from the word go, okay, you won't know from the word go that you're going to get divorced or there's problems, but tell the child, mommy and daddy are having problems, we're trying to sort it out, so when we're fighting, it's not about you, you're not at fault, keep the kid in the loop. It doesn't cost you much, as long as you keep it age appropriate and it's dealt with appropriately, then the child will never sit there and say, but if you were so angry at each other, why didn't you just leave, go their separate ways? Because often people say, oh, but we stay together for the children. Stop thinking your children need the parents together.
that's the worst thing that parents do, to say, let's stay because of the children, because there's more impact, the worst impact on the children if you say you think, because actually nobody really does it for the children, they do it for themselves.
Yes, because they feel guilty. It's a guilt complex you have. Oh my goodness, I'm taking the dad away from the child, I'm taking the mom away from the child, so guilt sets in, and I'm now going to stick it out for my children, be it the
But the
martyrs.
children suffer. Usually the children suffer in
Absolutely.
such situations.
And then when the child is 13, 14, and the mom says, I can't anymore, I'm getting a divorce. Why didn't you do it 6 years ago? Oh, okay, you knew. Well, and then the light bulb goes on, and it's like the child, but, well, okay, the child's more intelligent than the parent. It's like, well, But yeah,
Yeah.
it's divorce is, it's not the ideal. We do prefer to have the nuclear family with the dad, the mom, and the child. But a lot of things are happening. COVID hasn't been good to people. We've been struggling. Finances get to you, so you do end up in a situation where you have to get divorced, or divorce looms, and you go that way. So, is it? It's not about. I don't think it's a decision about can we stay together or should we get divorced. I think it just kind of snowballs into that, where you then, your relationship has just degraded into such a situation that you're standing there and it's like, well, divorce is the only thing I can do. And, sticking it out is
Yeah.
not going to solve the problems because of the toxicity of your relationship with your partner and
Yeah.
the children's
Do you,
struggle, etc. So it's, to make the situation better, that it's less toxic, rather split, go your separate ways, and let's deal with the situation as it is. So divorce is, as I say, not the ideal, but rather that than continue to fight.
Absolutely. I just want to say, to invite people to send us questions, so that you can address some of those questions, and see if we can answer some of whatever questions they might have, because we're hoping to reach out to people that are going through difficulty and that have an opportunity now to ask you questions. If they find themselves at a crossroads where they have to make decisions, but they don't know what to do. All right, so we'll just see if we don't have questions yet. But what I want to ask from the two of you, I mean, anyone can answer that, is that how many of your clients come to you and they really recognize that they have contributed to the problem at hand and are willing to accept that? So is it a large percentage, or is the reason why it ends up in divorce that nobody wants to take accountability and they continue to blame the other person?
I'd say that by the time the couple come to me, most couples have recognized where they are both at play, where they both are at fault for getting to this untenable situation. I can think of a very small percentage where one of the partners is really, it's interesting because the one that's on top of my mind actually is quite sad. He landed up having being diagnosed with a personality disorder. And he was just in absolute denial that he had any part to play in the breakdown of their relationship. And it was very clear to see this dynamic playing out in front of me. But still, he couldn't take responsibility until he reached breaking point, and then an assessment was made, and so on. Other cases, I've had the gentleman walk out in the middle of a session, leaving his wife behind, and not accepting responsibility at all. And mostly the men leave. Very seldom that the woman get up and leave.
That's also very important, because I think for many people that work with couples, it's usually the man that walks away.
Yeah.
Well, many people have experienced that, where the man just walks away.
Yeah. But yet, on the other hand, a large percentage of my clients sit here and they listen, and then the light comes on and they say, "Ooh, I never heard that," or "I never realized that. Oh, that makes sense." And when they sit and listen to the partner's story, childhood story, and I ask certain questions that elicit certain responses or answers, it's like, "Oh, I never knew that about you." And when I connect dots, oh, is that why? And the same for them. It's a fascinating process when they're sitting together and listening to each other's stories, and light bulbs come on and connections are made. And then the men, I've had situations where the men have wanted to engage in more counseling, more sessions, and the wives are saying, "Whoa, this is too much for me. This is too much vulnerability." And he's like, "But I'm loving this. This is so enlightening, and I'm learning so much more about myself." And the wife is saying, "Too scary."
And more about the partner. Yes.
That's interesting dynamic.
I think what's also very important is what I think Sonia said it as well, that it's important to start having those sessions even when there are no problems, because it's like sort of something of a maintenance kind of thing, where you just touch base to make sure that you're on track, you have the tools to deal with issues. So I want us now, let us say the couple fails to repair the marriage or the relationship, and they decide to break up, but they've got children in the mix, and now they start to meet other people, and now and maybe those people also bring their own kids into the relationship. How do people deal with that? Because there are so many dynamics that are at hand, wherein the children would have their parent here and another parent at another place. And we've seen a lot of blended families where there are lots of challenges. So how do we navigate that? How do we deal with with baby mama dramas and baby daddy dramas, because that also puts so much pressure on the kids. But however, I've also realized that it also allows the children to manipulate both sides. So how do we maintain that balance to ensure that everything is done in the interest of the kids, and parents don't allow the kids to manipulate them, because in the end it affects the kids? How do we deal with blended families?
Wow, you've opened up a hornet's nest. It's massive, full of dynamics, full of different personalities and exes, and what I mean by exes, ex partners, and it also comes down to in-laws and their interferences. And I'm not just saying that it's all gloom and doom. My advice personally would be that the new couple need support. They need counseling. They need to sit with somebody who's going to carefully direct them through this process. Tell them how to do it step by step. Because if they try and negotiate this on their own, it's just a complete, it can be a disaster. Would you agree with me, Sonia?
Absolutely. I think a lot of people think, you know what, I'm going to do this, they get married, and without actually planning this and thinking it through, things start blowing up. Because I get into with a partnership, he brings in 2 kids, I've got 2 kids, I'm going to protect mine, he's going to protect his, and it just ends up being a disaster. I do co-parenting classes to teach people how to manage this, because you have to make a lot of decisions beforehand. How do we manage our children? Because when you get into that relationship, you're going to have to manage your own relationship. You've got to respect the kids that are coming in. You've got your child that was the eldest, then and he brings in his kids, and that becomes the eldest, and it just throws the whole dynamic out again. So there are so many different levels that you're going to have to look at that people don't consider. So it is such a another minefield that you navigate in here. So parents really need to, it's not about we trying to tell you what to do. It is really just about helping you navigate this new area, because you've come from a traumatic experience with your ex, that because mostly divorce is traumatic. It doesn't matter if it's been an amicable mediation or you've gone to court or whatever. It is traumatic because you've been together with this one person, you've had children, and now you've got to navigate again. Am I going to get married? Now there's another person bringing in new kids, and it's a scary feel. It's scary. Am I going to make this work? Is it going to be successful? My first marriage wasn't, and you question all of these things. And now, you can't just walk in saying, it's going to work. You just let it grow organically and it'll
I like what you said. I like what you said, that it's not about managing them, but it is about providing them with the tools to be able to manage the situation, so they can still make decisions of how they want to run their family. But at least they've got some guidance and some tools from a professional. There's a question here. It says, why at times there's an expectation when married that one must accommodate children from a previous marriage or relationship?
Can I answer that?
Why?
Because they're children. Simply because children need to be protected. They need to be accommodated. They didn't ask to be put into the situation. That adults need to realize that they need to be adults and they need to look after children. And it's not about accommodating children. It's about making sure that children feel safe, secure, and that they are not, you can really psychologically damage a child when you have to accommodate a child from another relationship. Um, and that's where definitely with some skills and tools, with the help of a counselor, therapist, um, children, the couple need to know how they're going to make the children from both families feel safe and secure, and equal in this new blended family.
So key. Maybe not equal. You know how parents are. But I love the providing a safe environment, because when there's a safe environment, then children are free to express themselves without thinking that this one is my parent, that the other one is my step parent. So if there's a safe environment, it allows them to open up and be children, and just grow up like any other child. So I really love that, to provide a safe environment for them to be able to thrive.
And I just want to add
Mm.
to that, which is also key, is the concept of respect for
You've
children.
gone down again, the
I
volume.
think what is also key is the concept of respect for children.
Mm.
Because I don't think especially in South Africa, that a lot of times children do not get respected. It's often bandied about. You have to respect your partner, you have to respect your elders, and all of these concepts. But what about respecting children? Why don't they
Respecting
deserve respect?
children.
They're just as much a human being. They have human rights and all of these things. But nowhere there do parents actually ever talk about respect your child. They just as much in they just as much need that respect, because if you respect the child, then that child can actually start respecting the environment, their people, their teachers, and that. And I think that is a key concept that needs to be also considered. That if the parent that's walking in respects their child, then they respect their partner's child, because you say accommodating, that is a very, if you, it's like you're putting that child in a very bad light, because so there is no respect there. So be respectful of that child, because when you respect the child will respect you back. Because children are very easy, they're flexible, they're adaptable, and they're very easy in giving their love. And with
Yeah,
that, they're also very easy in giving respect and all that, because they just want, that they're not difficult creatures, if you know what I'm saying. They're
yeah.
very
And
lovable.
I suppose, yeah. And I suppose even if when you are respecting the child and the child has tantrums and they have anger, as an adult, you have to become the adult in that relationship. And the child will come around, because it doesn't help to compete with the child, because it's important to respect that child and understand what they're going through, because they could be wanting this parent to go back to the other parent that has been left behind at home. So the adult has to be an adult, and remember that this child actually needs me, and I understand where they're coming from, instead of competing with them.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
Mm. Yeah. So, okay, we have another question, or a comment. I like the drilling down into details from Hendrik. I like the drilling down into details in terms of breakups, not only a general overview of breaking up, and the emphasis on tools to cope with all the dynamics involved. Okay, thank you for that, Hendrik. Okay. So, now, because I think it's very key that, by the end of this session, at least we know, especially baby mama, baby daddy dramas, where this one, everybody's pulling each other, and they're using the kids in that fight. So where could be the problem? Is the problem the fact that maybe they still want to get back together? Or is it just a question of wanting to have some revenge? And if that's the case, what can we say to people that create drama for the other partner, and what impact that has on the child, because especially where the child starts to become the messenger, go tell your father this, go tell your mother this, and now the child has to communicate between the two. What kind of damage does it do to the child?
Terrible.
it's
Terrible
it's
damage.
it's really really hard on children. That's why I in the new mediation approach and the new child participation in divorces, I think that's a much better approach, because in the olden days when I got divorced, children were kind of by the side, and it's like, yeah, you'll go to dad then, you'll go to mom then, and they weren't really considered. The lawyers just said, okay, you have a child, great, we'll put him in the, we'll put down a parenting plan, blah blah blah. But the new approach is really to consider the child, get the child to participate, which really is about you social workers do this, I'm able to do it. We actually get the child's participation. Don't ask the child, what is going on at home? Do you want to be with dad? It's not, I'm breaking it down into really basic layman's terms, but it's a bit more intricate than that. But we're actually asking the children, what do they want? And because the standard of the Child Act is in the best interest of the child. So it's about, we can't put the parents back together, and we try and explain that to the children as well, to say, mommy and daddy can't be together because they've fallen out of love, but mommy loves you and daddy loves you, but now how do we manage you staying with mom and staying with dad? So what would you like? And then the child will say, well, I want to be with mommy on Monday, daddy on Tuesday, mommy on Wednesday. We say, okay, but that doesn't totally work because it's not viable. We explain to them that let's make it 1 week mom or 1 week dad, or every second weekend dad, and mom gets the other weekend, and on Wednesdays dad will fetch you. So we try and get the child participation for them to understand why mom and dad are breaking up. And so there's much more participation now than it used to be, because there's also that concept of the children have to understand that the breakup is because mom and dad don't like each other anymore. But it's also the concept of parents need to be guided through this to make the child understand that I'm not taking mom and dad away from you. I'm not, there's a lot of, so there's also that guidance that needs to happen, because I'm trying to answer the question about some children don't buy into the notion of their parents not being together, that you're taking the child away from them. And it's about how the parents are managing it. And often they don't know how to manage it, because divorce is not something you get taught in LO or something you learn from your parents. It's a totally new arena. So I think the new law that has come into play, the Rule 40, it's a ruling, the Rule 41A, that people have to go for mediation, which is a much more, how can I say, a much more a softer way of getting divorced, where you bring the parents in and you actually facilitate more, and you're actually guiding the parents through their own divorce. Whereas lawyers, you side with this side, you side with this side, and let's go to war. Okay, I'm making it sound horrible.
So with that mediation thing, is it mediation for them to be on the same page with the process of the divorce, or is it mediation to try and see if they can resolve their problems and get back together? What is
No,
the purpose of that mediation? So that's the new law. It's happening now.
yes, it's a new
So if
ruling
people
that says
decide that they
that
are
you
now
have,
going for divorce, they have to go through mediation first.
yes, the mediation is, it's because the courts were being too, they were too busy with all the legal litigation of divorces. So now what they're trying to do is to take the pressure off the courts, that the people go to mediators to mediate their divorce, which means it's not to fix the relationship, it's to mediate the divorce. So being a family law mediator, I can mediate your divorce, where it's basically saying, look, it's not about you and you're fighting about it, we're trying to see how can I facilitate your divorce in an amicable way. You're getting a divorce, but how can we split the assets as amicably as possible? And there's still child participation, there's a parenting plan that gets done, there's maintenance that gets discussed. I do the whole thing for you in a very in as amicable as possible way. So it's not about you finding a lawyer, the partner finding a lawyer, and then we go and hash it out. And because we can't agree, we go to litigation, which goes to the courts. So the courts
Yeah, that's very important. That's very important to know, because that could also reduce the, like the conflict and the infights between the couple.
yes,
I
that's
just want to go back to the issue of blended families again,
okay.
especially around either the woman not accepting the kids from another relationship, or the father or the man not accepting the kids that come with the woman. And in some cases, the woman has to leave the kids with her parents so that she can come into the relationship. So, have you experienced something like that with your clients? And what has been the result?
I have experienced that, and it's about dealing with the parental maturity, if you want to call it that, because it's about teaching the parents that it's actually not about them, it's about the children, and they need to understand that they're entering into a union without, that you can't say, I'm marrying you, but I'm not marrying your children. You come as a package. And if you're sitting there and you're fighting about the child, then you in essence fighting with me because they are mine. And it's a concept of that you have to teach them kind of, you can't have me without my child. But it is a difficult one because it's not really that they don't accept the children, it's more the concept of who's going to discipline them, because if one partner comes in and I'm going to protect my children, he's going to protect his children, those types of issues that are more an issue. If, and this is what usually happens, if the partner is not going to accept the children, then the relationship usually kind of peters out because you come with your children. So that's not really so much the issue. It's usually after they've married or after they've moved in together that the nitty-gritties that they can't
They
actually
start to
manage.
emerge.
Yeah,
Yes.
those are the things. And that's why, when we do the co-parenting in blended families, is that we say
Yes.
before you actually get married, you need to have your who's going to discipline, that the kids, that you have family meetings, that when there's a decision made, that this gets disseminated to all the kids, that discipline will be done by both parents. That if I
Yeah.
see
So
X
maybe it's advisable that before the marriage, that they have those kinds of ground rules, and the kids start to understand that there's a new family now, and they know what would happen in the new setup.
absolutely.
Yeah.
I'd just like to
Tracy. Oh,
add something.
yes.
I would look seriously at the type of man that this woman would like to be with. For me, there are red flags there. Why is this man so threatened by this woman's child? I look straight away at the the, the relationship dynamics and personalities, and I would look at what kind of choice in partner is she making, because ultimately, is this the kind of man she wants to be married to? the one who makes conditions and who's threatened by a child and who expects some such unrealistic expectations in this relationship. And how can you expect a mother, what kind of man expects a mother to be separated from her child? What kind of, what are his expectations of this family? So I would seriously ask, I would challenge this couple in terms of role roles, role expectation, about just marriage expectations. So I would, yeah, that's where I would go
Yeah.
completely.
Tracy.
And that's why I would say, from the beginning, this couple need to be guided with a whole list of what is going to happen. Let's tackle each situation. And if this is going to come up, that he can't accept the child, then it's like, whoa, let's just look at this relationship.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
Tracy, yeah, sometimes all your friends are married. Everybody's in there, so societal pressure, family pressure, that how come?
It's,
How come
I'm
this
sorry,
one
but
is not married?
I'm in
And I'm
for woman
saying there's
empowerment.
also that where women or even men can't really deal with the fact that they are left behind and everybody is settled. And especially with women, and then they jump into the relationship just so that they can also tick that box.
Then, all I would do is look at the situation, try to empower this woman, try to help her to, I would challenge her. Is this what you really want for yourself? And, it's really about
And for the child.
deservability. Do you not feel you deserve more? A partner who respects you, who is equal to you, who sees you as a woman and a mother, and where you have a say in your relationship, where you can have a voice. So, and if the client is not prepared to see reason or not want to be empowered, well, then you make your bed, you lie in it. But my job as a therapist, as a relationship and intimacy coach, if this couple were to come to me with this issue, if she still chooses to have this life instead of the one that I would help her to rather see, then what more can we do? We can't lead, we can lead the horse to the water. We can't make them drink.
Yes, but you've
So,
given
but
them
I would,
what they could do. Yeah.
yeah, no, I'm all for women empowerment, and especially in today's day and age, we have to be wanting more as women for ourselves in relationships, and we have to be seeing ourselves as deserving more in relationships.
Yeah,
We've
yeah.
got to
Thanks
be
for that.
making mold.
Yeah, I see we're almost running out of time now. And I think I want us to touch, before we stop, I want us to touch on the drama that gets experienced. A woman has a child. She breaks up from the father of the child. The father of the child has another relationship, but the woman continues to give problems in that relationship. And it could be vice versa. But let's just use the example of a woman that has a child and creates drama in the other relationship, knowingly so. Knowing that what she's doing is creating problems. So is it something that a woman would be doing intentionally, or is it something that they would be doing because they really have this need to have the attention from the guy? What exactly is it? Because it's happening quite a lot. So maybe there's something in that. So it needs to be looked at to say, are they creating trouble or are they in trouble themselves?
My answer to that is boundaries, 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 and more boundaries. You got to teach this new couple how to handle this woman who is making trouble all the time. If we're looking at the couple as the client coming with the problem of this interfering woman, you've got to deal with boundaries, how to set boundaries. If this woman with the child is the client, we've got to look at what is going on with her. So it depends who the client is. That's my take. That's
Or
my
it depends
answer.
who the client is, not who.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, but it's really a big problem, because I know a lot of guys that have said, there are big issues. The woman is creating problems, and maybe he doesn't know what to do because he can't control her because there are children involved. Because I know that men also suffer because of this. So is there any solution to this? And can baby mamas and even baby daddies, can they see the impact that they have on the other person's relationship? And also that also impacts on the child, or on the children. So do they see, do they not see what the impact is?
You
Or
don't
are
see
we in such a way that it's so easy for us to play victim? Because that can also be another thing, that I've been left with a child, feeling sorry for myself. Look what he has done, or look what she has done. How do we get the victim mentality out of people for them to take accountability and accept the situation and be able to now grow from that? What can people do to stop harassing the couple or interfering with the couple?
I just want to come in there because I do want to point out a couple of things because there are different layers in terms of why is she harassing him? And I want to just point out something there that in South Africa there's a big problem with maintenance payments. Men run away from it. So why is she harassing him? What does she want from him? And that would be my key starting point. Is she wanting money from him? Because there's a lot of men, and I'm generalizing here, which I am wrong to do, but I am on a website on child maintenance issues, and so many women struggle to get maintenance from the man. So if she's harassing him for the money, I understand that, and there is good reason for that because there's a big problem with maintenance in this country. So that one I fully understand, and I would support her on that one because they don't pay. There's a big issue there. The other issue is that there's that concept of possession. I have a baby with this man, he belongs to me. And I'm not too sure where that issue comes from, but people have this tendency to believe that if I'm in a relationship with a person, they belong to me. Same with kids. I've birthed them, they belong to me. And that is an issue we need to break because children are not your possession. You can't do with them as you like, you can't behave with them, you can't abuse them, etc. They are not a possession. And that is one thing that mothers and fathers need to learn is that respect your child. They are not to be abused. So that is another thing. So I think you have to break down the issue of what is the actual reason behind it. So
I think that is so important, Sonia,
Yeah.
because somewhere, somehow, the child is being abused in the process because they have to be pulled and pushed between the two parents. They're used to get things from the other person, and it may not be physical, but it's abuse. It's abuse of the child.
absolutely.
Hmm.
The thing is, if you go and do your research, that the physical abuse statistically is not the highest in this country. Even though
Okay.
gender-based violence is high, but if you look at the financial abuse and all of those, they're actually much higher. So, and that is where our issue actually lies, is that why, I know a lot of women have abused their baby daddies and they go and run after them and because they are looking for money. So, but the actual person who's suffering is the baby, is the child, and that is the bigger issue there. So, yeah,
I,
that's
I
another
agree.
whole different
Yeah,
issue.
I think just in closing, so we can have a few more words to close off our session. Tracy, you were saying?
I just think that if adults were to realize that the children that they need to have the best interests of the children at heart, I think we can sum this all up by saying that um, when couples divorce, even when they fight as married couples, it's very, very important that they have the best interests of their children at the forefront of their minds. And a lot of the time, we are so hurt as adults that we can only think about our own pain. But again, I have to stress that we are adults. We need to take charge, care of ourselves, as best as we know how to as adults, be it counseling, therapy, whatever way we need to look after ourselves. We have to look after these innocent children who are depending on us as adults to protect them and keep them secure. And if we could just get that into the minds of all the adults in these very heartbreaking situations, divorce and remarriage is very, very heartbreaking. But we have to remember to not use our children as tools, to not use them as messengers, to not make them feel that anything is their fault, and just to protect them and keep them loved, and just to make sure that they survive this trauma, because we are adults, we can look after ourselves, they can't.
Thank you, Tracy. And Sonia?
I fully agree. I have to just reiterate what
Can't hear?
I fully agree with you, Tracy, that children need to be respected as human beings in their own right. And they're not ping pong balls. They are beautiful, loving beings that need to be loved and cared for and respected. That's all I can say, because we tend to forget about them when we're being traumatized during divorce, during um, the blended family, because we're trying to find our new partners, in all these situations. That don't forget the children. They are so vulnerable, they are so small and don't have the coping mechanisms to deal with stuff. They can't ask for therapy, they don't understand that. So we have to step up for them. That is the important part.
All right. I think from my side, thank you for that, Sonia. So from my side, what I want to say is we have children that are older and in blended families. So what I would like to say is sometimes when they are also going through their own stuff, it's important for the children to understand that their parents could be going through a very tough time. So it's also critical, especially if they're above 5 years old, because they can see more, they can understand more. For when they're teenagers, it's even worse. So it's important for them to support their parents, to understand that their parents are also going through a tough time. And if the parent is going through a tough time, thank you for coming back, Tracy.
So sorry about that, my computer
That's
died.
fine. Yeah, so I was saying, so for teenage kids, it's important for them to support their parents, because parents could be going through a very tough time because of loss, because of not knowing what is going to happen. So when they have a child's support, not as in choosing sides, but a support in terms of understanding that mommy is going through this or daddy is going through this, and just responding well and knowing that everybody is going to be okay at some point if they all work together. So thank you very much for joining us tonight. And I'd like to thank everyone that has participated, that has been watching. And I really hope once more that from this discussion, somebody or some people will take something out of this to help improve on their relationships, improve on their family lives, so that they can heal and they can raise children that are not harboring a lot of trauma that they would have to deal with at a later stage in their lives. So thank you very much. My name is Matsileng Mohodi, and we will continue doing this on a weekly basis to try and find solution and discuss very difficult issues. Thank you very much and good night. Goodbye. See you again very soon.